Firstly, I want to begin by affirming that the United States government stands firmly with the people of Ukraine as they bravely fight back against Russia's invasion. Your resilience and your courage inspire us all, and we stand with you in solidarity. Like so many of you listening to this message today, we too are deeply concerned by the dramatic rise in anti-Semitic incidents and discourse around the world in the 12 months since October 7th, 2023. The Hamas terrorist attacks constituted the largest loss of Jewish life since the Holocaust. For many Jews around the world, the massacres that day, broadcast live by many of the perpetrators, brought to the surface painful memories and scars left by millennia of anti-Semitism and by the genocide of Jews by the Nazis and their collaborators just 80 years ago. It is imperative that we think of anti-Semitism as more than solely a threat to the welfare of Jews and the Jewish community, although that is reason enough to fight it. Anti-Semitism is also a threat to democracy. Those who believe in the conspiracy myth that Jews control the financial system, control the media, control the government, see democracy as an illusion. The notion that anti-Semitism is confined to the fringes of society is a dangerous fallacy. It does not lurk in the shadows. Instead, it is influencing attitudes and behaviors across all segments of our community, from boardrooms to classrooms. This pervasive hatred must be addressed head-on. Indeed, malign actors recognize the power of anti-Semitism to corrode trust in public authorities, in divisions between segments of society, to sow unrest and undermine democratic societies. By exploiting this age-old prejudice, they aim to erode trust and cooperation both domestically and on the global stage, posing a grave threat to both national and international security. We have seen this particularly starkly in how the Kremlin uses anti-Semitism to spread disinformation and propaganda to justify its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Recently, the United States led a global effort to counter the dramatic surge in anti-Semitism. Over 40 governments and international bodies joined us in launching the global guidelines for countering anti-Semitism in Argentina in July 2024. Among the signatories were both the Ukraine and Israel. This initiative brought together a diverse group of stakeholders to develop a unified approach to countering anti-Semitism. The global guidelines underscore the importance of a collective effort to counter this pervasive hatred and promote tolerance and respect for the dignity and human rights of all persons. We continue to collaborate with our partners to encourage even more countries to endorse the guidelines. The guidelines can be used widely at various levels of government and by civil society organizations, schools, sports federations, businesses, and other entities. They focus on practical public policy areas, including education, security, data collection, and whole of society efforts. While the United States fully supports freedom of expression and peaceful assembly, our strong belief in these freedoms does not mean that we sit idly by as individuals and groups spread abuse, harassment, or toxic expressions of hatred. It is important to call out and condemn all manifestations of anti-Semitism and other forms of hate which can lead to violence. This is one of the 12 basic practices highlighted in the global guidelines. All leaders should call out anti-Semitism whenever and wherever it arises. When anti-Semitism is tolerated or ignored, it can undermine democratic values of tolerance, diversity, equality, and freedom. Calling out anti-Semitism is crucial, but it also must be accompanied by concrete actions that will protect Jewish communities. The United States commends the authorities in the many countries that have taken steps to safeguard Jewish communities. We urge all governments to take the security of Jewish communities seriously and to use the resources at their disposal to ensure the safety and security of these communities, including appropriate investigation, prosecution, and punishment for those who commit anti-Semitic hate crimes. Despite the worsening situation for Jews around the world, it is important that we not be overcome by pessimism. Being Jewish is not something you do defensively. We must remember what we are protecting from assault. We must be motivated far more by our love for the insights, wisdom, and joy embedded in Jewish culture than by those who harbor an inexplicable hatred of us. Let us stand together, united in our commitment to combat anti-Semitism and embrace the rich traditions and cultures of Jewish life. By doing so, we not only protect our communities, but we uphold the values of democracy, tolerance, and human dignity.
Mr. Loshkin, Mr. Klein, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. Let me warmly thank you for giving me the opportunity of sending you this message, addressing you on the occasion of the 2024 special edition of the Kyiv Jewish Forum. The difficult circumstances under which this online conference takes place continue and have become even more challenging since last year. Over 2.5 years, Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine has inflicted trauma and death on the Ukrainian people. It has also severely affected the Ukrainian Jewish community, which is the 4th largest Jewish community in Europe. As all Ukrainian citizens, the community has been suffering heavily because of the war, and many have been displaced. It has also been more than a year since the horrific Hamas attacks on Israel on 7th of October, the deadliest pogrom against Jews since the Shoah. Not a day goes by that I do not think of the hostages who are still held by Hamas under inhumane conditions. May they finally come home. Both tragedies are deeply intertwined with the global rise in anti-Semitism. Levels of anti-Semitism were already alarmingly high before the Hamas attacks, with Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine aggravating anti-Semitic attitudes. Since the Hamas pogrom and the war that ensued in Gaza, anti-Semitism has skyrocketed. Europe witnesses a significant rise in hate incidents and violence targeting the Jews. Acts include the firebombing of Jewish premises, such as synagogues, physical attacks on Jewish persons, homes, restaurants, and shops. Across Europe, Holocaust monuments have been defaced with false comparisons of Jews and Nazis, thereby trivializing the Shoah. Almost all Jews in the EU are encountering anti-Semitism either online or offline, and 8 out of 10 avoid carrying or displaying items in public that would make them recognizable as Jews. The incidents that we have seen over the past year have reminded us of Europe's darkest chapter. Yet, it is possibly for the first time in the long and painful history of anti-Semitism on this continent that we not only fight anti-Semitism, but also actively engage in fostering Jewish life. The EU strategy on combating anti-Semitism and fostering Jewish life adopted in 2021 gives many concrete examples. It has triggered national strategies in 23 EU countries, and we expect all countries to adopt their strategies. 20 countries have appointed national envoys or coordinators. The EU Commission is also committed to leading the global fight against anti-Semitism, and it is in this capacity that I speak to you today. The Commission joined forces with international partners and signed in July 2024 global guidelines on countering anti-Semitism. It's signed by 42 countries and international organizations. We've also taken action to support the Ukrainian Jewish community. In 2023, the Commission allocated 1.4 million euros to support the Ukrainian Jewish community to provide first aid, protect and evacuate people, including Holocaust survivors, to safe places inside Ukraine and in the EU. Additionally, we have allocated 7 million euro to combat anti-Semitism and preserve Jewish heritage in Ukraine. These and many other measures are in place to foster Jewish life in Europe, which is at the heart of our strategy. Our ultimate goal is to ensure that Jews can live free from security concerns and go about their lives in line with their religious and cultural traditions, just like everybody else. And just as with the Jewish community in Ukraine and in Europe, we continue to fully support the people of Ukraine in their fight against the aggressor. Slava Ukraini, Am Yisrael Chai.